Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but just can't get anyone to debate. So anyway, Sabine Hossenfelder, there. She makes videos every day now, and must be just rolling in the dough. And so, who knows what kind of short shrift she's giving these subjects now. Off the top of her head kind of crap, I imagine. But anyway, so why our dreams of a final theory might remain dreams. So she's just going to do another rag on unification or theory of everything, that concept where you come up with some kind of elemental idea, like force is bits of force and matter is bits of matter, electrons and protons. And there's just a simple interaction between the bits of force and the bits of matter. And the force carries momentum, velocity, and it hits matter and connects to it, sticks to it, and pushes it around. And so you come up with some theory like that that actually works. You can create a simulation of charge really easy. It actually explains the circumstance. It fits well with the whole idea that photons are, as Einstein stated, bits of quanta, energy quanta, okay, at a frequency. And yeah, it works anyway. But, they won't pay attention. And they certainly won't argue any of it and explain how it's impossible that some simple theory could explain all the complications in the universe. But it's just a fact that they can. So let's see. I'd like to start with some sort of simple argument. So there's a simple argument that there's this idea of a strong force, that somehow you need some other force. So they, just like they have, magnetism, electricity, and gravity separated. There's the fourth one they call the strong force. They just invented. It comes from nowhere. It's some strong mechanism, whatever. And the fact is even since Maxwell, they really should have understood that if you wanted to get two protons, two positive charges close to each other, all you need to do is stick an electron between the two, and they'll go right into each other. So they can't see the electron, the other proton on the other side, because the electron's in the way. And it works to negate the repulsive energy. So you could do it with magnets. You could have two north-facing magnets, and you could just dip a south-facing magnet between them, and the two norths will get very close together. So anyway, so that's a simple explanation for something they complicated. And that's what the truth is they've done that to all of physics. They've basically ruined the science of physics with a bunch of false and phony axioms. So anyway, that's my argument. So on to the video. And I should have done this ahead of time, of course. Check the settings. Make sure, yeah, we should be all right.
To physics in the 1990s, everyone thought we're about to discover a theory of everything. I too believe that.
I don't know why. So the 1990s was the special theory of everything error. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, so I don't buy it.
But today, not only do I not believe we're about to discover it, I think such a theory doesn't exist. There's a simple reason physicists...
So such an explanation doesn't exist, such a truth doesn't exist, is what she's saying. So somehow there's no way you can reduce what are very simple, come on, fringe patterns, very simple thing, right? The pattern's very reliable. It's an on-off pattern. It can't be explained by something simple. We have to resort to singularities and superpositions and entanglement and all kinds of wooey crap. Yeah, I just say bullshit to that.
Physicists thought we're close to reaching a theory of everything.
So what this is, what's this symbolism? Jesus. Yes, you have everything out of focus. Yes, you've had it out of focus for 300 years. Ever since you rejected Galileo, Descartes, and Newton and chose to be believers of the Huygens Leibnizian view of reality, the Wu view, and then the Bohr model and the Bohr explanation, don't tell God what he can do kind of attitude. Not very scientific, frankly.
It's that nature seems to have a fundamental limit to how well we can resolve small
Oh, it's just, there's a fundamental limit. No, there's not a fundamental limit. We're way short of the fundamental limit. We can't actually even see atoms, okay? When they do these different tunneling microscope kind of things, those are synthetic images substantially, okay? They're projections based on scant information. So yes, it's just true that we rely on bouncing photons off of things to see them. And there's some things that are too small to bounce a photon off of without just knocking it out of viewability.
structures. Beyond that limit, the universe is inevitably blurry, or so it seems. This shortest length scale.
So we know that it's just blurry because of our limitations, the limitations of what we're trying to do with light. And the fact is we can't use something like gravity or some other mechanism. And the fact is this is how the frickin' universe works. There's a point where you can't interact with it without interacting with something that's going to cause it to move twice as fast or 10 times as fast or 1,000,000 times as fast. It's going to cause action in the object. You're not going to be able to bounce something off of it anymore because it's too light to bounce something off of. I mean, duh.
Is about 10 to the minus 35 meters. It's called the Planck scale, named after Max Planck.
So this would be how discrete something like gravity or electromagnetic radiation, these kind of things. This is the discreteness of those bits that are interacting with what we call electrons and protons. And the neutron is just a combination of an electron and a proton. And those things are being pushed by this discrete force. That's the sensible, foundational explanation. And again, they will not even indulge in a conversation about how well that actually works. Momentum works. It always gets right answers. It does, in fact, land you on the moon. And yet they reject it as being the elemental function of the universe. They have a bias against momentum and an insane bias for a living force that's never been demonstrated to exist with credible evidence.
It seems to set a limit to how precisely we can probe structures.
So again, it doesn't set the limit. The limit's in the physical reality. There's no way to go to the smallest part of the universe, and there's nothing you can bounce off of a photon. And clearly there's almost nothing you can bounce off an electron because the photons are already moving the electrons an awful lot. And, we just can't control them enough. We can't create a camera that pushes them from both directions the same amount so we can tell how much pushes are happening because we couldn't tell the difference between the misses and the hits. The fact that we don't have a mechanism for seeing it isn't anything but our limitation. The mechanical device. We can't make a ruler to look at the smallest things because the ruler, we can't engineer it.
And all that's before that we already know. This is why physicists thought that the next theory we'll find in physics.
So Steven Weinberg was not too good a guy in the sense that he's responsible for the silly, quirky crap. So he's, his claim to fame is the invention of Babel. But anyway, continuing.
Will be the last one. It'll be a theory that explains this blurriness. It comes from the way that quantum physics combines with gravity.
Oh, brother. So gravity is just this force without a pattern. So when the force has a pattern and it comes at a frequency, it can tip things over. When it's just noise, it just does this. Nothing happens. All right. That's the simple way to understand it. Tipping point's a really good argument for understanding the difference between how you apply energy and getting action out of it, and the fact that you can apply it wrong or not consistent with its resident capacity to absorb energy, and it will behave differently. So something that's continuing to absorb energy will behave differently than something that's rejecting the energy because you've either increased its mass or increased its negative velocity.
Or so they believe. Remember that according to Einstein, gravity is caused by the curvature.
So who cares? Okay, according to Einstein, and we all must believe because Einstein had supervision and he could see gravity and he could know what gravity is. No. And so he invents an explanation that has absolutely no mechanical structure. So it's made out of nothing. Okay, so you bend some nothing and you end up with an effect caused. All right, so it is basically breaking the chain of cause and effect. It's breaking the mechanical Descartesian notion of how the universe works. And as I have explained, we already know it doesn't work because we know that heat in the universe is being created by gravity. Gravity is heating every object of any substantial mass, ends up being residually heated by the process of gravity. The sun is hot because the sun is massive. The earth is melted in its core because the earth is massive. Things are a temperature indicating how much gravity has created energy. And they just don't even get it. Okay, that gravity is the source of the compression and the expansion is the release of energy. So we do work when we expand something. The universe does work when it contracts things. And so gravity is the big work mechanism, the big storing energy that we can extract. And so it can't be just bent space because there's no way to put the heat. There's no mechanical, rational way to describe how heat turns into nothing, bent space. Obviously, the heat turns into a discrete force that we can't see, but that clearly is pushing.
Space and time. He taught us that space and...
Oh, brother, he taught us. He wrote 3 paragraphs of babble, a non-explanation for merely a convergence. The gravity is doing the same thing the sun is doing with photons. The sun is expelling photons at the inverse square law. It would look exactly the same as gravity if you ran it in reverse. If you ran photons in reverse, they'll look just like a gravitational force. And he said it's nothing that's doing it, a bent geodesic. Clearly, we don't blame a bent geodesic for photons being emitted by the sun. So this is where this whole conversation goes so south.
Time are dynamic and responsive.
So they can't see any of this for real, so they make these fake images that you don't see in the reality. The reality doesn't produce these blender images. And the blender images have streaks in them because of the blender, not because of any true lensing effect.
To masses and
They're spinning a fluid.
Energy in them. Also remember that according to quantum mechanics, masses and energies have no exact location.
So again, it's just so silly. The objects don't have aren't real and they aren't things. Why are we, everything's a wooical. There's nothing real. There's no electrons, protons, and, neutrons. They're all wooicals. Everything's a wooical. I mean, it's just horrible science. There's no good reason to believe any of that mush, that gobbledygook.
Because of the uncertainty principle. If you
So again, more nonsense about some principle that isn't proven by anything. There's no evidence that it must hide from us. The evidence is we can't see the damn shit. So yeah, we can't be certain of positions because we can't see it. We can't bounce something off of it without changing where it is.
Combine these two properties, it implies that the quantum uncertainty of masses leads to an uncertainty in space.
So again, more crap about how space isn't even consistent. So even though we know the distances are consistent, you know the speed of light is certain over these distances, that somehow the distance can't be changing unless you're changing the speed of light. So why do they make such a mess? We know there's 3 dimensions of space. I mean, Newton was so specific about arguing this that, come on, why, this is a foundational premise of understanding what's going on in the universe, is understanding that you can't bend and twist this stuff. It's a universe made out of force moving straight lines, going real distances at real maximum or real only velocities. It's their only velocity. A photon has only one velocity. And the only way it can look like it went slower is because you made it travel a longer path.
And that means that locations themselves become uncertain, not just the location of a particle.
So this isn't gobbledygook. This crap that we're supposed to believe based on no hard evidence. I mean, they're not going to show you any good reason to believe this crap. They're just going to sit there and preach this religious dogma, this fairy story about how the universe works.
But what it means for something to even have a location, this is the fundamental.
So they say this stupid, idiotic argument that somehow they've proved the universe is made out of wackacles, means that proves there can't be any foundational universal theory, because there's no way to write a universal theory about a bunch of wackacles. And yeah, that might be true if there was good reason to believe wackacles was proven, but it's not proven physics. Not anywhere close to proven physics.
Mental limit to resolution. The general argument dates back to Matvei Bronstein in the 1930s, in case you've never heard of him.
Yes, just in case you've never heard of him. Let's do a Google search, see how many people have actually heard of him, and find out why exactly she's bringing him up. Yeah.
It's probably because his career was very short. In 1938, when he was just about 31 years old, he was executed in a Leningrad prison. For the next 40 years, no one paid much attention to his ideas, or maybe they were too scared. But then in the 1970s, the question returned.
What question? What did he do? So what, he had something to do with this standard model crapola?
Because by then physicists had completed the rest of the foundations of physics besides gravity.
So this is the nonsense. This is their foundation. So all these little gluon-y things here, that's somehow the strong force. And then you have this category of electrons and protons over here. So the protons are over here being controlled by quarkies, okay? And then the bosons are giving things their mass. I mean, it's just such a pile of garbage.
They'd collected all particles in the standard model.
So these aren't all the particles, of course. These are just the foundationals, and then you have all the antiparticles plus all the derivatives. So there's like 800 particles in their zoo. And yet atoms work.
And figured out that they hold together by merely 3 interactions: the electromagnetic and the strong and weak nuclear interaction.
So this is the joke. Like I said, the strong nuclear force has only one explanation, and that is you want to get 2 positives close to each other, you stick a negative between them. Duh. The weak nuclear force is a nothing. They don't even have a sensible description of it anymore.
These 3 have quantum properties, but they...
Says them. It's just bullshit. And again, the 2-slit experiment, their perverse interpretation of that experiment is what's led to all this confusion about something as simple as what mechanically happens with photons, which is, you're able to push, electrons. If you keep adding energy, you push them while they're still moving in the direction you're pushing them, they'll keep moving faster and faster. But if you have a frequency that's too wide, a wavelength, too big amount of time between the times you hit them, they start slowing down and reversing their direction because they're caught in tension, and like rubber bands. And so if you don't keep hitting them when they're moving in the direction you're going with your force, you will not add any energy to them.
They still hadn't succeeded in combining these three interactions with gravity. They had, however, given a name to the theory they were trying to find.
It's obviously a discrete force. It pushes us, okay? It moves all of our little bits. All of our atoms are affected by it. So we know it isn't a big object force. It's a little object force. It's pushing the electrons and protons at the same, and it's because the electrons and protons have the same mass that everything moves at the same velocity, because the only thing really moving are the electrons and protons, kind of obviously. That's why the feather goes the same speed as the hammer, is because the only thing that's actually getting pushed is a mass of one solid mass, an electron and a proton. So it's always pushing the same object, the same speed. So nothing can travel a different speed in gravity because nothing's made out of something other than electrons and protons.
Quantum gravity. We still don't know what the correct...
Oh, you don't know anything is the truth of it, okay? You've got everything perverted. Pervertiverse. That's all you've created is a monstrosity of nonsense. Goopy gobble.
Theory for quantum gravity is, but we have several approaches. And would you know...
They're all wavy and fun. Wormy and fun, like little stringlets of maggots.
This resolution limit that Bronstein was already going on about.
So Bronstein was going on about some limit, okay, that's just happens to be the same as Heisenberg. And somehow we don't know that Bronstein invented it, or some sort of crap like that.
Has crept up in almost all of them, be that string theory or loop quantum gravity or asymptotically safe gravity, or...
What a pile of, again, just weird, bizarre explanations for something so simple. You've been given momentum in a direction. It seems obvious that you got your momentum because you took it from something. Something had to give it to you. You don't get it for free. That's not how the universe works. It's conservative.
All of them seem to say that the universe limits how much we can learn about it. Then again, maybe that...
Mush, 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 mush. We can model it, and you just have to start with the right elements in the model. And if you start putting a bunch of hobgoblins in the model, your model's going to break and fall apart. I mean, if I model a car engine and then start saying, well, there's pixies and hobgoblins and smurfs, and I have to somehow cram them in there, they're just going to get in the fucking way, aren't they? I mean, I'm not going to be able to put them as part of the explanation without them clogging, the cooling system or making some sort of mess.
Shouldn't surprise us, because the major problem that these theories...
Oh, brother. So I don't know what that was, but snowflake.
Of quantum gravity should solve is singularities, points in...
So now we're wasting time talking about some abstraction that somehow you can push particles into the same location in space. So a theory for which, again, there's zero evidence. Good logic tells you, no, I don't think you can force electrons and protons all into the same location. I don't think they can all fit in the same box. Bullshit. Too ridiculous. Why would I believe that?
Space where the curvature can become infinitely large. In Einstein's theories, this happens inside of black holes.
So it's not Einstein's theory, right? So it's their perversion of Einstein. So Einstein wouldn't agree with this conversation and say this is a critical issue in physics. The idea that somehow you can crush matter into one location, because Einstein didn't think you could either.
Or at the Big Bang. In these singularities, the mathematics breaks down.
So this is the old story. This is the normalization argument. Well, we'll fix this silly theory that doesn't really work in a universal sense by creating just arbitrary limits that tell it it can't do that anymore. And that's all it is. It's just cheating.
We can't calculate what happened before the Big Bang or after.
All right, so again, then this assumption that all the evidence points to it and we can't draw any other conclusion, and it's it's decisive compiling of evidence when all they have is redshifted photons. And you can explain redshifted photons with something like scatter. If photons go through a murky substance, they'll come out the other end with their frequency degraded. It's just a fact.
A black hole singularity. And a simple way to get rid of these singularities is to blur them out. This is what quantum gravity does.
So how the fuck does this prove there's no foundations, there's no ability to create a universal theory or an elemental complete theory? I mean, just nonsense. That this somehow proves there's no possibility. We have to believe this crap, and because this crap can be spoken by these loop-de-doo gooers, these gobbledygookers, that somehow we're obligated to believe there's no way out. They've trapped us. We have to believe in Wooverse all the way down. No. Bullshit. You don't have to be a dupe. So stop doing it. Yeah, I guess I just throw it in. This goes back to this whole Leibnizian crapola, the mv squared, the living force. Because all the particle physics, the invention of neutrinos, all of that stuff is a byproduct of them using 1/2 mv squared to calculate the energy of moving protons and electrons. And it's because they have preposterously exaggerated their energy that they have to force the interactions to conserve the kinetic energy. And they can't conserve it, so they have to invent some reason why their answers aren't consistent. And so they invent these fake particles that don't exist to account for the fact that there has to be more energy in their interactions. So all of it is nonsense. It's made out of again, they have no evidence it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast, to spin something 5 times as fast, and no evidence that something spinning 5 times as fast can do 25 times the work. And yet you believe this crap.
It blurs out what happens on short distance scales. By the way, this video comes with a quiz that lets you check how much you remember.
Another piece of her commerce. So yes, this is more crap to make money on. Take our fun little quizzes. Everybody loves quizzes. Don't you remember in school how much fun quizzes were? Oh, I just can't. These people are so clueless. Why are you trusting somebody who doesn't know quizzes suck? How do you know? Quizzessuck.com. That would be the rational domain name. Can we do something else more fun.com? Oh, fuck you. .com.
You can now also use AI to create your own quizzes on my website.
Oh, isn't that so fucking exciting? No, it isn't. So she's doing commercials for her own commercial products. Disgusting. This is science. Don't you remember Einstein used to sell laundry detergent, and he did Buick commercials and all that kind of stuff. Is that science? Fuck.
But when physicists speak of a theory of everything, they mean more than just a quantization of gravity that makes Einstein's theories fit together with...
Well, you don't have to do much more, though, okay? Once you have recognized that gravity is as elemental as photons, that it's really doing the same kind of thing, that stuff moves because the energy hits them, and there's a differential because there's actually a convergence, going into the object of momentum. Momentum is converging into the center of the object and heating the hell out of it.
The standard model. They also want all the details of the standard model itself to come out of it.
And that's the part that's just too ridiculous. So they want a simple explanation for, say, the combustion engine, but they want to make sure that Smurfs pop out of the exhaust and the valves are pushing, the Keebler elves up and down. And, they want to put all the crap, the nonsense, the little hobgoblins back in the story. I mean, it's so fucking ridiculous.
Like the masses and the types of interactions and the strengths of the interactions, it should all come from one unified idea, like strings, for example.
Oh, geez, it's just so... This silly illustration, is this... What, do you think this is what an elephant's made out of? I mean, what the fuck is this shit? That this is chemistry, the bonds between two atoms. This is what they're doing. They're stringing. Come on. It's just such crap.
Or Garrett Lacey's E8 or Eric Wein.
Oh, fuck. So they just throw these images at us as if they're all the same theory, or they're all in the same category, or they're all doing the same thing, and they're not. So she already pointed out that the Mathematica guy is trying to do something, more grounded. But again, yes, he's expecting to get out of it crap. He's expecting hobgoblin theory.
Einstein's geometric unity or Stephen Wolfram's hypergraphs. That is what they mean by a theory of everything.
They mean. But I'm just saying, talking to you people, you do understand a theory of everything would just be some sort of elemental theory, like a theory of abiogenesis. Some understanding of the physical mechanism that causes the certain events to take place. And that once you can... once you make a DNA molecule, then you make the thing that cuts it in half, and then you make the thing that creates a membrane so the right chemistry can be combined into the DNA molecule, and then you're sort of off to the races, and then you have a nucleic cell and all this kind of crap, and it's in stages, and it's all by these simple rules that dictate how these atoms combine, and that it's not any more complicated than that, and it's just built up in levels of complexity, which are really just levels of density. If you have enough permutations, almost anything can pop out.
There are some good reasons to believe in such a theory of everything, and some not so good reasons.
There's no good reason to think the universe isn't exactly like evolution, in that it's a whole different kind of mechanical system that controls the shape and dynamics of the big complicated objects, and it's that universe. It's the only universe. There's one universe, the universe where electrons and protons are being bombarded by a force traveling the speed of light, little bits of force, this stuff in the background. That is the only universe there is. That's the one in the empty space with the things where events are happening. And those events happening over trillions of them per microsecond is what creates all of this. All of this, happens there first. That's an elemental understanding. That's part of how you build a reasonable theory of everything, is to get those answers right. And if you get those concepts wrong, if you start putting squirrely maggots in there and crooked lines and all kinds of other nonsense, then you're doomed to fail.
Reasons. The not so good reasons are aesthetic. It'd be prettier if...
Not so good reasons. So there's not good reasons to believe. I don't even know what that means. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them. So this is some sort of Lord of the Rings crap. Oh, fuck.
We had one theory for everything rather than several different ones, and certainly nature must be pretty. This is the same.
So again, there can't be several different ones because there are contradictions. So that's just like the religion thing. You can't have all the religions can't be right because they have contradicting characters. Hobgoblins don't get along with pixies. They can't be in the same universe. I mean, this is so fucking stupid.
Argument that astronomers made to say that the planetary orbits are certainly circles, and that didn't work so well either. Generally...
And as an assumption, it was perfectly reasonable. All right, but yes, all you had to do was a few experiments to figure out it was really hard to create a round orbit. And that's the truth of it. It's not like it's impossible to have one. It's just that it's really impossible to push something and to give it velocity and create a perfect orbit. That's the part that's impossible, because something always has to come in with energy in a direction, and that bias will create your your wobbled circle.
Aesthetic arguments have historically worked badly, which is to say there is no evidence they work any better.
So it's kind of cheating to call it aesthetics. Simple isn't the same as aesthetics, okay? Symmetry arguments aren't exactly the same either, but it's clear that symmetry plays a role in the physical universe, that things do end up, okay, being replicated that way, that the cell splits in two and makes twins, things like that. I have a twin sister. And it does happen in that kind of binary way. We have every evidence that there's binary sources for most of the things spinning, and that it could be even true that the sun itself started off binary. And that's why Mercury's precession is screwed up, is because the sun still contains a tiny bit of its binary origins.
Better than random chance. After the arguments from beauty, there are some suspicions that everyone has about the standard model. If you just look at the masses of the particles, they don't look random.
So they don't look random. I don't know what that means. They shouldn't look random. I mean, what should ever look random? You sort of know that everything is cause and effect, and that we can never randomize a cause. There's no, you can synthesize it by density, again, of variables. You can create enough variables that it'll look like it's random, but it's never random. Like, really, it's always synthetic.
They seem to have a
Nature doesn't make anything called real random.
pattern.
It's another one of these principles that just, again, that sit there and narrow where you can go with the nonsense. Understanding that there is a cause and effect universe, and the rules are draconianly applied, and photons travel billions of light years, arriving at a perfect moment in time. I mean, everything is under strictest rules.
In which the particles in 3 generations have masses that are about an order of magnitude apart. And the only particles that use only the weak interaction, the neutrinos, have the...
So the only part is, so they have limited the weak interaction to now just neutrinos. So we know this isn't a real force anymore, right? Because we know neutrinos are just nonsense. So yeah, so obviously the weak force was something 50 years ago, and somehow it's just leaked all of its relevance, and now they're resurrecting it by giving it this no-show job. Oh yeah, you control the neutrinos, Mr. Weak Force. Yeah, I mean, this is pathetic bullshit.
smallest.
I mean, clearly they're just making this crap up. Every 3 years they modify one of these little figures a little bit and change something. Crap. Absolute crap.
Masses. There is something going on there that we don't understand.
Yo, you just don't understand anything about logic and reasoning and a fair trial and how you do a good investigation. You wait for the evidence. You don't jump. You have to use a little bit of discipline, control your enthusiasm.
It doesn't seem likely that this would be a coincidence. Then again, one can only talk about the likelihood of something occurring if one has a probability distribution.
So we saw nothing here that disturbs that truth, right? Nothing that they can explain. They're just saying there's some sort of anomaly. Did you see the anomaly? I didn't see it.
We only ever observe this one universe, so how are we supposed to know whether it's likely or unlikely what we observe?
So again, all this mush about some other universe working by some other rules, and it's just all piles of crap.
I made this argument in my book Lost in Math, but I don't think
So selling that again, still over and over.
physicists understood it. A somewhat better
Right, so she didn't think the physicists could understand it. So what's the rest of the people supposed to do with your book? You know, fix an uneven table leg? Is that what it's good for? If the physicists didn't get your point? If you couldn't even talk to them and make them understand? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you just made you just made a brain fart and explain your book is pointless because even the physicists don't understand it.
reason to believe in a theory of everything is that gravity and the Standard Model, despite all their differences, do have a lot in common.
Oh, so this is just ridiculous. Neutrinos, gluons, singularities, entanglement, that has something to do with gravity. You couldn't get simpler. I mean, gravity is as simple as photons being ejected from the sun. That's all there is. There's just the inverse square law. There's no other elemental thing about it. That's why there was a little bit of a controversy with Hooke and Newton, in terms of Newton sort of taking credit for this gravity theory. When, yeah, they'd already other people have discovered this inverse square relationship. And that's all there really is. That's all there is. That's all we know about gravity that we know is the inverse square law. And the fact is the inverse square law can do two things. It can be the law for things shooting out of an explosion, or it can be the law for you creating a vacuum cleaner hose thingy and evacuating the atoms from a box, and they'll obey the same rule.
They're both field theories. They both heavily rely on symmetries. They both can...
I should just point out how symmetries, that's beauty again, isn't supposed to be relevant. Hilarious.
...be described in terms of curvature.
Oh, so, and again, it's just one of the most elemental rules of the universe is, no, it's a straight line, dull, stupid universe. One-dimensional objects moving in one straight line, and that's all they can do. You can't give them two velocities. You can't give them three velocities. The forces, the elemental force that makes up the universe, this is something you can say about it, is that it can't go a combined speed. It can only do one speed, the speed of light.
A lot of people more intelligent than me have tried to use these...
Oh, please, give me the names. Name the people you think are more intelligent than you. I'd love to see that list. What a pile of crap that just was. Oh, I'm humble. Oh, please.
...similarities to formulate a theory of everything, and so far they've not been successful. And over the years I've come to think that the reason that none of these approaches...
where's the beef? Where's the beef? Yeah, well, sometimes it takes time, all right? But the fact is Newton gave you all the little pieces. Galileo, Descartes, Newton, they had all the little pieces, okay? They just didn't have electrons and protons yet, but they were just so close. And youth just pissed it all away with bullshit.
...approaches to a theory of everything led anywhere is that there is no such theory. There's no such theory.
Oh, so there's no way you can understand evolution without a poofy God, then? Is that what we're supposed to believe? There's no elemental, fundamental physical mechanism that could be perfectly consistent and reliable and always do the same thing and produce this outcome. Oh, it's impossible to get this complex universe out of some simple rules and laws. Yeah, so it's a religion. See it for what it is. It's a religion. Physics is a religion.
Because the argument for its existence is circular. It's logically wrong.
It's not logically wrong to believe that the fact that we're made out of 100 billion cells, our brain alone, and then you have to go into these extraordinary numbers to talk about how many electrons and protons you're made out of, and to realize that insane density can be controlled by very simple mechanisms that even Feynman conceded. It could just be a checkerboard. It's such a massive checkerboard that it can create all kinds of different images out of the black and red checkers. It could look like lots of different things. That's hardly a silly understanding.
See, the argument is that this theory would be a final theory because it has this resolution limit. But the only support for this is the
resolution limit is just, again, silly. You have to go past the resolution limit. The whole point is to create a model where you suppose the thing that we can't see. You create it synthetically and then run the model with your little synthetic projection of what the invisible stuff looks like. You're never going to see it, so the only way you can see it is to model it. And there's absolutely nothing irrational about doing that. That's like somebody, reconstructing a murder scene. It makes perfectly good sense to reconstruct the elements of what was happening.
Resolution limit that we find in approaches to quantum gravity, which assumes that this theory is a final theory. So if you assume it's a final theory...
I mean, just who cares about what you think the theory's doing? The point is whether the theory has evidence to support it, or whether there's any reason to draw conclusions, whether you really have nail in the coffin evidence for any of this crap you spew, this gook.
Then it's a final theory. To use a technical term, these approaches all assume that a theory of everything is UV finite. If you don't make...
Oh, whatever that is. UV finite. I mean, just so, again, just silly.
That assumption, you have no idea what happens at short distances, so you don't know whether it's a theory of everything.
No, again, it's not. It's just about figuring out a model that duplicates the function, and that's all you need. So I want to duplicate the function of two protons getting really close together. I figure out that I can stick an electron between them and I can get the two protons really close together. That neutron plus proton, which would be proton, electron, proton, is a real working model. It works.
And without that argument, the only reason we have to think that we're close to a final theory of everything is that we don't have much left to explain. Quantized.
Oh, amazing. Just amazing. I mean, the theory is all goop. You can't make sense out of any of it. All of this spinning and, projections of function that are just wacky. Singularities and entanglement, ESP. I mean, it's just absolute babble.
Gravity, throw in a few extra particles for dark matter, done.
Oh, and then all that nonsense. You can't even, she admits, you can't even place this dark matter where it actually works. I mean, even when you can explicitly put it where you want it to go, it still doesn't work because it can't stay there.
Also, you could think, if you ignore, like almost all physicists, that we don't understand quantum physics in the first place. This is why I believe that working on a theory of everything is a waste of time.
Oh, no, it's the only rational thing to be doing is to be searching for the theory that doesn't have hobgoblins, pixies, fairies, Smurfs, SpongeBob, Bugs Bunny. It doesn't have any of that shit in it.
We first need to understand what's going on in the measurement in quantum mechanics.
Okay, they can't even understand that it doesn't take 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast, and that going 5 times as fast doesn't give you 25 times the capacity to do work. They still can't understand something that fucking simple.
Of course, most physicists think I'm as crazy as I think they are.
So this is more... So why don't you name some names? Come on. They don't think you're crazy. They think you're a duplicitous hypocrite, and they think you're a shit talker. They think you're lots of stupid fucking... They think you're very short-sighted and very myopic and very biased. Yeah, I think so too.
and there's a nice symmetry in that. You could almost say it's beautiful. If this video inspired you...
Oh, Jesus. And so then she does another commercial. Oh, what a crass, ugly person, really. This is the face of science. I mean, she's got 4 ways to make money. You know, it's crammed into her devotion to physics. It's just grotesquely gobbledygooky. Yeah, she's covered in it, and it isn't good gook. Yeah, gooey woman is a good thing. Gooky, not a good thing. Alright, anyway. Shit. I hate this planet. So go ahead, be a fucktard. Be a fucking silly, doopy asshole, okay? And have your neurons made impotent and useless by shit-talking, arrogant poofters. Woosters. Little wooster. Wooster, wooster, woo. Roo-roo-roo-roo-roo. Yeah. Gobbledygook-a-doo. Gobbledygook-a-doo. Woosters. Yeah, maybe we'll go with that. Woosters. Shit. Fuck. Stop being assholes.